Evil. The citizens of the Imperium call us evil. And some of you, my brave commanders, have come to embrace the term. But we are not evil. What we seek to bring to the slaves of the Corpse Emperor are glorious blessings. In place of endless and tedious service, Lord Slaanesh offers unimaginable pleasure. In place of weakness and vulnerability, Grandfather Nurgle offers endless resilience. In place of desperate conscription, Lord Khorne offers the joy of glorious battle. And finally, in place of hopelessness, Lord Tzeentch offers the infinite possibilities of magic. No, my brave commanders, we are not evil. In this story that is the galaxy, we are the good guys. I hope you all enjoyed that performance. That was the speech I would have given at this year's Warhammer 40,000 Grand Narrative in Atlanta, were I actually going to be a participant, but that's not going to be the case. I was hesitant to make this video because it is an emotional subject, but I wanted to explain why I won't be attending this year's Grand Narrative in Atlanta. First off, I'm Bogo, and for the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of serving as a Vox Lokalum in the Warhammer Grand Narratives, first in New Mexico in 2022, and then in Atlanta in 2023. In 2022, I was assigned a very interesting role. I was in charge of a shrine world called the Sermona Magnificat. And by all outward appearances, I was an imperial priest. I was very pious and devout and was inspiring the imperial forces on to victory. But as the event progressed, I became more and more purple. And it became clear that I may not be exactly what I was purporting to be, until finally, on the final day, I was entirely purple and had completely manifested as a gene stealer magus on the side of the Xenos interlopers. Ultimately, the Xenos interlopers won, and it was a lot of fun. I think even the Imperial players who had become invested in the game, I think even they found my sinister betrayal to be a lot of fun. So I went home from that initial Grand Narrative just, as pleased as could be, really happy with the end result. And I think it was ultimately a big hit. So then I was excited to participate in the 2023 Grand Narrative, and I found out that the role that I would be playing was an Imperial priest. And this Imperial priest actually didn't have anywhere near as interesting backstory, didn't have any secrets. I was just an Imperial priest in the retinue of an Inquisitor. And of course, I was tasked to wear the exact same costume that I had worn in 2022, which makes sense because I was an Imperial priest. The problem is, I showed up at the event, and everybody who had participated in the 2022 Grand Narrative looked at me and said, "Oh, we know that guy. We know that guy. You cannot trust him." And I'd have to explain, no, I'm not that same person. I happen to look exactly like him, but I'm not that same person. I'm not a gene stealer, etc. And then, I did my best to craft my own backstory for my character, and I did my best to bring the characters within my zone into the story and have them help me figure out why there were all these different shrines to different gods all within the same location. But ultimately, I gotta say, it wasn't as interesting a part as what I had played in 2022, and that was a little bit disappointing. So nonetheless, I left and I was still excited to be part of the Grand Narrative team. And then this year, I was very excited and honored to be asked to participate not as the voxel column, but actually as one of the Lords of War, specifically the Lord of War in charge of the Chaos Forces. My character was going to be a Dark Apostle of the Word Bearers, which is one of my absolute favorite Chaos Legions, and I just loved the idea. And the event coordinator who asked me to participate explained that the reason they chose a Dark Apostle to be the leader of the Chaos Forces was because, unlike other Space Marines, Dark Apostles very often appear without their power armor. And of course, the costume budget wasn't going to support a full suit of power armor. So the idea was that Dark Apostles sometimes appeared just in their clerical robes and that sort of thing. But to the same extent, a Dark Apostle is an imposing, terrifying character, arguably capable of taking out entire enemy units single-handedly. So I asked what my budget would be for the costume, and I was given a budget, and I immediately set to work designing what I thought a Dark Apostle would look like. Now, as far as official portrayals of Dark Apostles, as it turns out, I couldn't find a single work of art that showed a Dark Apostle outside of his power armor. So that left a lot to the imagination. And I tried to envision what would a Dark Apostle look like. And I thought, well, dark priest robes, maybe some sinister looking pauldrons, of course, the legendary accursed Crucius weapon that he wields. And I put together what I thought was a pretty impressive costume, including 4-inch platforms that would make me 6'5" tall, at almost the height of an actual Chaos Space Marine. So I sent that to the event coordinator, my quick sketch of my costume, and his assessment was, quote unquote, that looks badass. But then he recommended that I send my design to some cosplayers who were assisting with the design of some of the other costumes. And I did that. I sent my sketch to these cosplayers. I waited to hear back. I never heard anything. So, eager and excited to participate as this Dark Apostle, I started putting my costume together. I was actually really pleased with how it came out. It came out almost exactly the way I imagined. And, my friends and family who saw me in costume, they thought it looked great. It was tall and dark and intimidating. And I was really ready to put on quite a show. I then sent the picture to one of the event coordinators. And again, he recommended that I send my picture to these cosplayers. So again, I sent this picture of me in costume to these cosplayers, and the response that I got back was that we would need to get approval from the GW IP personnel, and that they had actually already gone through the process of getting approval of my costume from the IP personnel. And then these cosplayers sent me a sketch of what my costume was going to look like. And lo and behold, it was the exact same red Imperial Priest robe that I'd been wearing for the past 2 Grand Narratives, this time with a little tabard over the top to make it look like chaos, like a chaos outfit. And to say I was disappointed was a huge understatement. I argued Dark Apostles are intimidating figures. They're not wimpy little imperial priest in red robes. And, I really argued. I thought my costume design was much closer and was going to be much more immersive. But the answer that I got back was that they'd already gotten that costume approved through IP, and essentially that was the costume I was going to have to live with. So they asked me for my measurements. I never sent in my measurements because I was so disappointed. And ultimately, when I thought about it, the idea of once again showing up in the exact same costume, but as a different character, and this time as a vastly different character, I just wasn't interested in doing it. And I'm sure many of you will hear that and say, oh, I was being a prima donna, or, I rage quit the event because I didn't get my way. That's really not it at all. I absolutely love the grand narrative. I love what the grand narrative is, and more than that, I really love what the grand narrative could be if it was done properly. And, to me, the role-playing and the immersion, that's really what it's all about. It's not about balancing the games or making sure that each one of the teams comes out roughly equal, and, nothing like that. The grand narrative is something different. The grand narrative is an opportunity to immerse yourself in 40K lore. And I was ready to do that. I was ready to be a big part of that. And the idea that I would once again have to explain, no, I'm not an Imperial Priest this time. I'm actually a Dark Apostle of the Word Bearers, even though I look exactly the same as I looked over the course of the past two grand narratives. I just didn't like the idea. And I'm hoping that that explanation makes sense. For everybody who is attending the grand narrative, my apologies that I won't be there to enjoy it with you. I hope you have a great time. When I withdrew, I certainly wished the event coordinators a lot of luck and a very successful event. And for all of you who are going to be attending this year's grand narrative, I really hope that you have a great time. I hope it's very immersive. I'll be curious to see what my replacement looks like, if they ultimately wound up going with the red Imperial Priest robe, or if because they had to start from scratch, if they actually came up with something that was a little more creative and looked more like the Dark Apostle that the actor is supposed to be representing. But ultimately, I'll be interested to see how that works out. I'm sure that my replacement, he or she, will do a great job, and I hope that it's an enjoyable event for everyone. So enjoy your time at the grand narrative. I'm sorry I won't be there to enjoy it with you, but again, I just wanted to post this video to explain why I won't be there. Thank you for listening.